Welcome to the Economy Magazine at I24 News. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the news from the world markets and the global economy. Coming up, Europe tries to resolve its agricultural crisis as farmers say they are drowning in milk. And multinational high-tech giants converge at Tel Aviv's DLD conference. First, the headlines. Emerging market central bankers appealed to the U.S. Federal Reserve to raise rates as originally anticipated to end uncertainty and turmoil in the markets. The expected U.S. rate hike will likely spark large capital outflows from emerging markets into dollar-denominated assets. Many emerging markets have already seen net private capital outflows of about $300 billion in the past 4 quarters, according to the Institute of International Finance. But some chief bankers say uncertainty about the expected rate hike is more damaging in the short run. For now, emerging economies are hit hard by a rout in raw materials and a slowdown in China's economy, while domestic economic weaknesses become more pronounced. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang tried to reassure global investors on the strength of China's economy and Beijing's ability to manage a growth slowdown. China is not a source of risk, but a source of growth for the world, Li told the World Economic Forum, following a tumultuous summer sparked in part by Beijing. Signs of a slowdown, a sudden yuan devaluation in August, and subsequent intervention in currency markets to avoid a sharper devaluation set off a wave of global volatility. Markets dropped globally on Thursday, led by Asian stocks following lackluster Chinese data, which heightened worries about slackening global growth. China's consumer inflation in August rose marginally, but producer prices fell for the 42nd straight month, making deflation a significant risk for the world's second largest economy.
Of course, the Chinese economy still faces difficulties and downward pressure, but it is still within a reasonable interval. In the recent 2 months, some economic indicators have displayed downturns or fluctuations, but the measures that we have adopted earlier are showing their effects gradually, and positive elements are converging. Some indicators have started to pick up.
Standard & Poor's downgraded Brazil's credit rating to junk, further limiting President Dilma Rousseff's efforts to regain investors' trust. The rating agency cut Brazil's rating from BBB- to BB+, indicating substantial credit risk. The downgrade, which soars market sentiment about Latin America's largest economy, will increase borrowing costs for the government and Brazilian companies. Rousseff's left-wing government had imposed austerity measures in a bid to avoid such a downgrade. And as the outlook on the new rating remains negative, further downgrades could soon follow. Thousands of farmers protested in Brussels demanding EU action to counter the slumping prices they get for milk and pork. The European Commission has offered an aid package, but it remains to be seen what other measures will be implemented. Shelby Weiner has the story.
6,000 gathered from Belgium, France, Germany, and Britain, eyes red from tear gas and clothes soaked by water cannons. Farmers shouted their anger in Brussels over the collapse in milk and meat prices.
We can't overcome this, or we would have to milk 1,000 cows, and that's not manageable. In this system, when prices fall, we have to increase our livestock, and that makes no sense. People are slaves, and we must denounce this, because it's impossible to work in systems like this.
Global overproduction of milk combined with the end of the EU's milk quotas is a problem, on top of weak demand from China and Russia's embargo on agricultural products. In response to European sanctions over the Ukraine crisis, Moscow no longer will buy European goods, costing the EU 10% of their agricultural exports. Farmers are now calling for production control.
We are here with all the European dairy producers from EMB and CVC to say that we really must control production. If the market can absorb 100 liters of milk, then we must produce 100 liters.
European ministers are examining ways to stem the crisis. A budget of 500 million euros was proposed, but its distributed between states and sectors has not been specified. The aid must be subtly balanced. A significant increase in funds for milk producers would not solve the problem of overproduction. The Commission thus emphasizes the private storage of meat and milk, which is expected to withdraw from the market volume. Soil exports should be strengthened in 2016 as well. There's also the possibility of raising prices. Several countries have proposed the idea, but it's a solution that the Commission is not fond of.
Afghanistan is home to the largest untapped iron ore deposit in Asia, worth billions of dollars. But security concerns and lack of infrastructure have so far hindered its exploitation. More in the following report.
Hajigak Mine, the largest untapped iron ore deposit in Asia. These mountains in Afghanistan's central Bamiyan province hold an estimated 1.8 billion metric tons of ore. 4 years ago, an Indian consortium and a Canadian company announced a joint bid to develop the mine. Most residents in surrounding villages are potato farmers, a lifestyle they say they would happily give up.
It's hard to harvest potatoes in the spring and get the money only in the autumn. People might think mining is an easy job and pays more, so people would be happy to work in the mine.
If the project goes ahead, an estimated 400 houses from 3 villages would be destroyed and thousands of jobs could be created. Hajigak's resources were first detected in 1911. Russian engineers drew up extracting plans in the 80s, but war and a lack of infrastructure stalled the project. Once more, the latest mining plan is delayed, and even government officials are unsure when it will start.
The Hajigak iron ore deposit is considered a big mine deposit, and we haven't reached capacity yet. The Minister of Mines has plans in this regard. At first we need to build, and then we have to exploit our biggest mine.
But even with the proper infrastructure, security remains a major concern. The Taliban have a strong presence in provinces surrounding Bamiyan. And while these farmers insist their villages are safe, they fear the mining companies could stay away because of possible militant threats. Most of them are former Mujahideen fighters, and they have agreed to form militias to protect the area.
When the mining work starts here, people will come from every province. This will threaten the security of this area. Then the Taliban will infiltrate. And so, if the people from this area do not take security into their own hands, no one else will.
Afghanistan's mineral deposits are worth an estimated $1 trillion. As aid money dries out in a country torn by nearly 40 years of war, tapping into natural resources is a top government priority. And these farmers hope that some of that wealth will finally trickle down to them.
Israel's long-established tech sector has been likened to the Israeli economy's steel shield and even its iron dome, warding off geopolitical strife and financial turmoil. In the following report, Shelby Weiner takes a look at some of the first high-tech multinationals who invested in Israel and those who followed more recently.
Intel first opened an Israeli office in 1974. 4 decades later, the American giant is entrenched throughout the country.
We have a very meaningful presence in Israel with more than 10,000 employees in direct employment and more than 30,000 employees in indirect employment. We have R&D and manufacturing activities in Israel.
In 40 years, Intel has invested more than $17 billion in Israel. Leading products come out of Israel's laboratories. One is the new Skylake processor, which is twice as fast and 3 times more energy efficient. A real revolution for graphics development.
Basically, Skylake was made, the R&D team in Israel, not only in Israel, other places in the world, but a big portion of the R&D was done here in Israel, specifically up in the north in Haifa, where we have a number of engineers.
After Intel opened an office in Jerusalem, other U.S. giants were quick to follow. Google set up in Israel in 1998. Today it has more than 700 Israeli employees. For Tel Aviv's 2015 DLD Lounge, Google created a large event for the cloud, a very competitive market estimated at $3,000 billion in the coming years. Launched 3 years ago, Israel's cloud platform is one of the 4 global hubs of this new online technology. Miles Ward came from California and explains the benefits of this new program.
You pay by the minute So whether you need a database or a website or a web application or new tools to help mobile users access information, we make systems that allow building of those kinds of solutions incredibly secure, incredibly performant, and super, super cheap.
Google Cloud already has 10,000 clients worldwide. The platform allows them not to waste time with coding, but instead facilitates accelerated development of innovations, thus saving time and money. Waze is a good example of using sales solutions and buying locally developed applications. Google has cemented its place in the center of the Israeli high-tech ecosystem. Encouraging innovation and finding talent is a company priority.
In the past, the people were going after companies. So the talent went to where Intel was and where IBM was and where Facebook was. But today things are changing. The companies are coming to where the talent is. Something that is very unique, I think, in Israel is the fact that Israelis are looking for problems. They're not looking for solutions. The first way for an Israeli startup is to say, what are the problems around me, and to try and find a solution.
Facebook freshly arrived in Israel 2 years ago. The #1 social network platform wove its web with 4 acquisitions, including the Anovo app, specializing in metadata analysis.
C'est un des plus gros bureaux de Facebook en Europe, à la fois parce qu'on a
It's one of the biggest Facebook offices in Europe because we have customers, but also because we have a true Facebook ecosystem with multiple companies. The next story of Waze or Facebook in Israel is to develop apps for the Facebook platform, enlarge them, and also make them profitable.
Pour les faire grandir et aussi pour les monétiser.
More than ever, the American high-tech giants are banking on Israel. Silicon Valley has its Middle East branch, which has been dubbed Silicon Wadi. Now another giant is following the footsteps of the American names. China invested $8 billion in Israel last year.
And we're joined on the set now by I-24 News reporters Shelby Weiner and Shai Ringel with more on the DLD conference that took place in Tel Aviv earlier this week. Thanks for joining us in the studio. Shelby, you were at the DLD conference. I mean, what were some of the big names that were present there?
Well, we saw some really big names in business. Google, Intel, Facebook had a huge presence, and they're all really coming together, trying to get into the startup ecosystem here.
Okay, obviously, I mean, Israel has been home to a lot of big multinational tech companies for decades at this point. I mean, Israel has been in the high-tech sphere since the 60s, essentially. Why would a big company, Shai Ringel, why would a big company come to Israel?
There are different reasons for a big company to come to Israel. First of all, they are still searching for developers around the world, and Israel is really good at producing developers and coders. And this is something that a company like Facebook, who needs developers everywhere, and a lot of them can come to Israel, open very cheaply a development center, and just collect developers from the entire sphere.
It's really an innovation-based situation here? I mean, like, it's because of Israeli innovation?
It's yes, and because there are a lot of people who know how to code. Somehow it happened, but...
Is this because of the army, because of different...
There's the A200 unit, and because of the A200 unit, there are a lot of security, cybersecurity-based companies here in Israel. So you can know that people know how to code, and this is something that Facebook cannot find in a lot of countries, but they can find it here in Israel.
Now, at that same level, I mean, since we're talking about innovation, you just told me earlier that the innovation ranking of Israel had gone down.
Yes.
Why is that? What exactly happened?
It's hard to pinpoint exact reasons as to why rankings change, but we have to look at global trends. And a major thing we're seeing is a shift towards Asian markets, particularly in China. They have a lot coming up, really big money coming in, and business is just booming in those areas.
Obviously, right. I mean, essentially, Israel is known for innovation, but China is the world's second largest economy. Surely they can invest a lot more money in there. Now, when we talk about other things, beyond innovation here, I mean, there are also the tax credits and cuts, and depending on how many people you bring in here, how many Israelis you employ, and I mean, what can you say about that?
there was a plan to bring as much as big tech companies to Israel as possible, mostly because Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, believes that the economy in Israel should model itself after the Irish economy.
Right.
And what they did in Ireland is to try to lure companies like Google to open big development centers there, and they gave them a huge tax breaks that no other country would allow. And this is something Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to do here. He failed to do so, but he did manage to bring some tax breaks to companies. The big company to come to Israel because of tax break is Intel, who opened a factory in Dimona in the south.
Okay, well, guys, this is unfortunately going to be the end of our interview. Thank you so very much for joining us. Shelby Weiner, of course, Shai Ringel, thanks for joining us and giving us more information regarding the high-tech sector in Israel and innovation. That is the end. Thank you very much for watching, and join us again next week for more in the economy.